first thing that the guy said to me, "Listen, little lady, but you're not the one that we want out here." I heard him talking, and I was like, that sounds awesome. Like, I want to do that. And my dad's like, well, typically women don't do this, so I don't really know if that's for you. 10 minutes later, I had a job offer, and I've been there almost 6 years now. I credit the military and the Marine Corps especially for helping me build the thick skin that I have now to be able to be a woman in the trades and to be able to be in the field. Life is too short to do something that you don't love. It's not a bad thing to hop around and try and figure out what you want.
All right, welcome to the Lost Art of the Skilled Trades. I'm super excited because I have a special guest, Valerie Butler of Pipe Incorporated. Welcome, Valerie, to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It is so cool being here at PHCC. Tell us a little bit about, so you're an apprentice.
Yes.
Plumbing apprentice. But you told me that your family wasn't so into you becoming a plumber. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
So I had just gotten out of the military due to an injury, and I was trying to find something to kind of do with my life. And at the time I lived with my dad in his apartment, and my brother lived there as well. And my dad was trying to get my brother interested in the trades. He was like, hey, you can go work for like a Gaylor, you can be an electrician, you can do all these different things, and I'll build you a great career and a great path. And I was like, I heard him talking, I was like, that sounds awesome. Like, I want to do that. And my dad's like, well, typically women don't do this, so I don't really know if that's for you.
Wait, I'm going to stop you right there. Because you're a woman, he said it's not for you. Was he worried about your safety, or it's just not?
He was mainly concerned about me aggravating the injury that I had. I broke my hips a couple of times. And so it was about that, and then more about like just the safety, and like women are not common in this industry. And so it's just one of those, you don't see that every day. And I think it was more just he was gearing my brother towards it. And he's afraid if I caught the interest, then my brother'd be like, well, she's already doing it, I don't have to do it then.
Wow. So you came back, and now you want to go into the trades. What you're being told, was that both sides? Was your dad and your mom said that, or that was more of your dad?
I don't have a relationship with my mom, so it's just mainly my dad was just kind of, was a little bit on the fence about it. So he was more so like, why don't you apply at like some supply houses and you go do like work in the warehouse and you pull material. And so that's the path that I ran with at first. Was I applied at a supply house, and my dad is actually really good friends with my current boss at Pipe Incorporated. And they were having lunch one day, and you know, when you're having lunch with your friends, you just kind of share what's going on with your kids. And my dad mentioned that like, hey, she applied at a supply house. And so my boss is like, oh, well, did she get hired? And my dad's like, no, like she hadn't heard back yet. So then my boss asked if he could interview me, and I showed up, and they already had an appointment packet sitting on his desk. And 10 minutes later, I had a job offer, and I've been there almost 6 years now.
So growing up, were you always good with your hands? And let me ask you another question on top of that. Are you a problem solver?
I have always enjoyed working with my hands, and I've always loved knowing how things work. I used to help my dad out with a lot of like the yard work and the working on his vehicles. And then when he got into boats and having small hands and being able to fit my hands in the places that he couldn't when he needed something done. So I worked with my dad on stuff sometimes. And then I've always enjoyed learning how things work and how they operate. And I think that's helped a lot with being in the field and just knowing like, okay, this happened, so how are we going to fix it?
I speak to a lot of people in the trades. It doesn't matter what trade it is, or if it's welding or carpentry. They love to solve problems. It gets them excited.
It does.
It gets them like, oh my God, yeah, I want to fix that X, Y, Z. So it's understandable why you would be gravitated towards the trades. But why plumbing? What was, when not welding or electrical or?
I ask myself that same question all the time because this is not a desirable trade. But I got hired on, originally I actually want to go into like electrical. But I got hired on at a plumbing company, and then when I got hired on, I was doing takeoffs. So I was like pulling like fixtures and equipment, and I was going back and forth with some of the field guys about backflow preventers. And for some reason, it clicked in my head. I was like, I want to know how to install this. I want to know what a meter tree is. I want to know how to do this. And that was my moment where it like clicked in my head of, I want to be a plumber. I don't want to just work in the office. I want to know how to install. I want to know how to do this. I don't want to have to sit here and have the guys explain to me how this works. I want to be able to explain it and understand it for myself.
Got it. So that kind of led you to that path. And it's interesting when it comes down to, you know, what path you want to take. And a lot of kids today, some are interested in the trades, but some of them are just, they don't know what to do. Like, okay, a plumber, kind of know what a plumber does, but I don't know the steps to get in. So being a third-year apprentice, for someone who is in the audience who is thinking about getting into plumbing, where do they start? Like, what do they do?
Honestly, I would say most plumbing companies, they have a shop. And you can just be like, hey, can I just do like a summer internship where I just work in your shop? I pull material. I occasionally go out to a job site, see if this is at least something that has an interest for me. Because you don't have to dive deep into it. If this isn't something you're set on, you don't have to immediately go to school. There's so many like other trades. There's so much to do. So it's just go to a company and be like, hey, I want to see if this is for me. Can I work here for the summer? Can I work here for a few weeks? And most companies are starving for help. So they're like, yeah, I need someone to help pull material. I need someone to take stuff out to a job site. I need someone to do a cleanup.
Well, how do you tell these kids? Because some of them are a little afraid to go up to, like, show up at a local plumbing, supply, whatever it may be, and say, hey, I'm looking for an internship. Like, how do you get that skill set or that being comfortable doing that?
I think a lot of it is just knowing that, like, okay, I have to figure out what my future is. And so I do a lot of high school career fairs. I go and visit a lot of schools and I talk to a lot of students. And so I'll give them my card and I'm like, hey, as like the easiest thing to do is just ask. Like the worst they're going to say is no, but you're never going to know if you don't at least ask. And if you decide this isn't for you, then you're not stuck in a career or in something you don't want to actually do.
Yeah. I mean, that's great advice because not everybody can do that. Just I call it a little assertive, like show up and, try to promote yourself or ask. Some people want to make money right away, right? As an apprentice, in a first-year apprentice, what are the wages roughly for entry level?
Typically it depends on what you're going to do. If you're going to be service, residential, commercial, but typically it's anywhere from, I want to say right now, 17 to 22, just starting out.
Starting out. And you're located in
I'm located in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. But if somebody was in New York, California, would it be different only because of cost of living?
Yes.
Would be different. I do a lot of social media and I hang out a lot on TikTok and I do a lot of lives. And there's always interesting, a dynamic of people who always come on the lives. Some of them are for it and say, yeah, I can make a lot of money. Some of them are just, why would I take a job for $17, $18 an hour versus I can go work at McDonald's and make $21, $22 Chipotle. But then there's the flip side of people are like, wait. You might be stuck at $21, $22 an hour after 4 or 5 years. But as an apprentice, you keep making more money. So where do you top out of? Just so people understand, like after 4 years of being an apprentice.
It also depends on what your company does and how they pay and all the benefits that they come with it. And so like my biggest argument with it was when they make the comment, oh, I could go work for McDonald's and make the same thing. Well, is McDonald's paying for your education? Are they paying for you to go to school? Are they paying for your tools? Are you learning a valuable skill set that you can use for the rest of your life if you're just working at McDonald's versus if you're in a trade, you have a company that's putting their faith in you to believe that, hey, you can do this. They're paying for your education and they're paying for you to learn. But for most companies to top out at like a journeyman pay, typically, I say first year starting apprentice, you're probably going to make around 50, 55 a year versus when you top out just as like an entry level journeyman. So just the first year, you're finally licensed. This isn't like when you're a foreman or anything, but it's when you're finally licensed after your 4 years, you're probably pushing around 70. Just at an average 40 hours a week would be right around what you'd end up at.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't sound so bad to me.
No, not at all.
And you didn't go to college. You don't have the debt.
Exactly.
And you're ahead of the game. And that's what a lot of kids need to decide their journeys because a 4-year college degree is not for everybody. Did you consider going to college?
So I graduated high school at 17 years old. I graduated when I was a junior. And so I actually did a semester of college where I was waiting to join the Marine Corps just because I had to go through some waivers and I had to put on some weight to be able to enlist. So I did a semester of college, but as soon as I heard that, like, hey, my waiver's cleared and I was cleared to enlist, I dropped out and I went to the Marine Corps. So I kind of explored the options of I did the semester of college, I did the military, and then I kind of went into the trades all within like 2 years. So I kind of just
That's a busy 2 years.
It was.
I assume that the military gave you the discipline, right? You know, you were probably very different from when you came into when you left.
I credit the military and the Marine Corps especially for helping me build the thick skin that I have now to be able to be a woman in the trades and to be able to be in the field. But it gave me the discipline and it gave me the confidence to know that, like, hey, I can do this. Like, I went into the military. Granted, I got injured, but I still went in. I still did it all on my own. So I do credit a lot to the military.
Yeah. You had mentioned something about your hip. Is there any, can you share or?
I basically I have bursitis and tendonitis. And so what happened was I had cracked my pelvis. And so my muscles would swell and basically they were starting to pull my pelvis apart by the cracks. And I just wasn't healing the way that the Marine Corps wanted, or just it wasn't beneficial to me when they told me that at 18 years old, I was looking at a double hip replacement. And I was like, yeah, I want to go home. This isn't for me. So I ended up taking a condition non-disabling medical disability. So I'm not disabled. Not technically disabled, and it doesn't affect me in the field as much as everyone thought.
Okay. I was going to ask if it does really affect you.
Not too often. Like if I'm working on a hotel and I'm walking up and down flights every day, then the next day I feel it, but so does every person walking up and down flights every day.
Takes a toll after time, which kind of leads me to, as you get older in the trades, right? And you kind of feel it, right? Your knees maybe are shot, or like your legs or your hip is shot. What's the next iteration for somebody who can't really work in the field? Do they move into the office at that point? They want to keep going?
The way that my company does it is if you're kind of at that stage where your body's kind of like, hey, I can't fully do this anymore, they will put you as just my company. Typically, you're like a non-working foreman. You still work, but you don't do as much as you used to do, and you just oversee the crews and the bigger projects. Or we have some guys who have transitioned out of the field. They've come in to be like our shop guys, where they help maintain the shop. They do deliveries, they do cleanups, or we're trying to get some of them to come into the office. But most of them are kind of they're so used to the field and the jeans and their boots. They're like, I still want to be out there to do it, but I don't want to fully do it.
Yeah. What keeps you going? You're still sort of in the action.
Yes.
But I almost feel like to get to that part, you need to walk in those shoes. Like you need to understand, the element of, being in the field and working, whether residential or commercial, whatever it may be.
It is very different to go from the office to the field. Like I mentioned prior to this, I do both. I work in the office and I work in the field. And it is two very different environments. And you have to almost be two very different personalities to be able to handle both sides of everything. So I see both sides of it and I understand both sides of it at this point.
I remember I don't know if you know Plumber Page. I don't know if you know that name. She's a plumber, social media. She was on the podcast. She said she does residential work. And she said that when I show up at the door of, in the local area, and it's the husband who answers the door and they look at me and they see I'm like 5'1", how are you going to it's that old adage of like, you're going to fix my plumbing. And then they feel like, well, I should be able to feel that way. But it's interesting that she's felt that throughout the last handful of years. But she does amazing work and she gives back she speaks at trade shows and she does a lot of things for kids. But she always felt that. Do you feel that at all?
I do. Because you kind of know, like when you walk into like a trailer or you walk on anything, the first thing they're going to look at you is like, she has no idea what she's talking about. And immediately they dismiss you. I recently was at a job site and the first thing that the guy said to me, he was a superintendent. He looked at me and he goes, listen, little lady, but you're not the one that we want out here. And that immediately was just like one of those, okay, so this is how it's going to go. But it's one of those things that it's always going to be there. And eventually you just have to get used to it and know enough that like, okay, they don't know me, they don't know my abilities, but now I have to show up and show out. And like I said, it never goes away. It's always going to be there. But for every one of those that there's at least 10 others who are like, oh yeah, a woman, she's here, she knows what she's doing. And so I always have to think about, okay, it's the handful of the guys who are actually like, yes, I want her here.
Yeah. I guess you're always going to find that. Look, you can go into an office and white collar work. There's always somebody, right? There's always that one person that says something. But I guess it gives you a thick skin after a while, but you prove yourself.
It does. And
right?
you do. Yeah.
Yeah. And there were so many talented women in so many different trades that they're actually, to some degree, better in some aspects, in certain trades.
I like to say that men kind of get tunnel vision. They have like one set idea of how they want to do it, and that's it. Versus women, we look at the overall picture. We look at the start and where we want to end at, versus the men are like, this is how I'm starting and this is what we're doing. I'll figure out the end when I finish the start. Versus like if I'm looking at like a copper that I need to run, I'm like, okay, it's going to go this way to that way. This is how I want to run it. This is where I need to put my hangers. This is what I need to do. Versus the guys are like, these are the fittings that I need to get started. So it's just like, I feel like men get more of a tunnel vision versus women. We look at the overall picture and what we want the end goal to be.
As far as being an apprentice, who did you work under? Like, who did you immediately get mentorship from somebody who's been in the field for a while? Like, can you attribute some of your success to somebody that's helped you along the way?
I 100% can. For me, going to the field, I'm the first woman in my company to be an apprentice, to actually make it almost all the way through the apprenticeship. And so there was a lot of worry at first about my boss putting me into the field. And so he put me with my first foreman. And I worked with him for about a year and a half. And he put me with him to make sure like I was safe in the field until I could hold my own. And I credit so much to that man. He had my back with every situation. He did not have any fear about letting me do any plumbing. He immediately was like, all right, you're going to do this. He didn't once question or when other foreman would be like, you're going to let her do that? He's like, yeah, I'm going to let her do that. So he made sure that like I had the confidence to do it and he had the confidence in me. And he still does. I still talk to him constantly, even though I don't work under him anymore. So he's got new apprentices. But I credit a lot of me being in the field and me being as far as I am to just the faith that he had in me.
I mean, how important is mentorship? I mean, somebody who believes in you.
It is the biggest thing because it's like when you don't feel like you can keep, like, especially as a woman, sometimes you get kind of down and you don't think that you can keep doing it. Having like all the mentors that I have, I know that I can go to them and they're like, hey, why are you thinking like this? Like, you know what you can do. You know what you've done. Why are you letting this affect you? And it's one of the biggest things is getting through, or just even after an apprenticeship, having a mentor and someone that you can go back to and just talk and spitball with. It's everything.
Yeah. I hear so many of those stories that somebody can attribute their success to one or two people, and how important is, mentorship. And it probably can also cut the time in half because you have questions, right? Instead of trying to figure it out yourself. I mean, you need to know the fundamentals and the basics, but like your career path, is that person helping with your career path as well? Or is there somebody else who's kind of helping you along just to give you a little bit of guidance on top of sort of the fundamentals and stuff?
So the way that my company does it is when you work with a journeyman or a foreman is they teach you. And then after they teach you, you're pretty much supposed to go on your way and do it. So when I started with him, we were on a finished job and he showed me how to do a shower valve and then he watched me do one and then I knocked out 30 in a day. And so then the next, I think 2 or 3 days later, he showed me how to set a toilet. He watched me set a toilet and then I went and I set a whole floor toilets. And it was just things like that. If he would show me how to do it, he would watch me do it and then I was good to go. So he taught me how to solder for the first time. And now I primarily run copper. It is probably my favorite thing to do. And I still run my copper like how he does it just because I spent a year and a half with him. So I still plumb the way that he does just because it was the fundamentals of how I learned because it worked for him. So now it works for me.
Right. And he's been doing it and it's the way it's supposed to be done and you're following
yes
in that path and in those footsteps, which is really great. I mean, I think it's extremely important to get around people who want to help you, but also mentor you and push you, right? At times, I'm sure you were kind of literally pushed, right? Like you said, like, go do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to think on your feet and you need to try different things. I just want to pivot over to the apprentices that are working over there. For people, obviously, that can't see that there are apprentices competing against each other. Tell me about the competition over there. Did you get a chance to take a peek over there?
I did. So some of the guys are all going at like the same pace. They have the same idea that like, hey, we're going to make sure everything's perfect the first time around. And then you have a couple of you guys who are like, hey, I'm going to get it done today so that tomorrow I can check my measurements. I can check everything. I can pull everything. So you can see the different mentalities of how they're plumbing and how they've been taught. And like just looking at it, you can, as a plumber, you can just see like, okay, they're studying it this way because that's the way that they learned. And you can see the technique that they use. So you can see the different ways that they've learned and they've been taught. And it's actually really cool getting to go stand over there and just watch them because they're all doing the same thing differently. And that is probably my favorite thing is that you can plumb the same way, but you're going to do it differently. And they're all doing it differently, but it all looks the exact same.
Yeah. And it's interesting just to see them work.
Yes.
And that's a lot of pressure. It's a ton of pressure. I see the same thing are you familiar with Skills USA?
A little bit, yes.
Skills USA, I mean, it's just this massive auditorium with, thousands and thousands of kids of, it's plumbing, it's carpentry, it's it's every trade. And these are young kids. These are young kids, a lot of pressure on them to win the competition. So even that, we're staring off, from the sidelines, but they're feeling the pressure.
Yeah, because they're not supposed to look or talk or acknowledge anyone from the sidelines, but they can feel that there's eyes on them and that all of these plumbers, contractors, exhibitors, everybody is looking at and judging their work right now. So it definitely is a lot.
It is. It definitely is. But it's great to see at that age, how far they've come, that they're here.
Yes.
And they're doing amazing work. How do we get the interest level of the younger generation? I always like to focus on Gen Z, ages 13 to 28. How do we engage with them if schools are really not sort of, guidance counselors not sitting down and say, hey, look, Valerie, I think you have a mechanical ability. You should be a plumber. I don't think those conversations are typically happening. What do we need to do in the industry to try to reach the younger generation?
I think a lot of it is personally when I go to career fairs is I like to bring my tools. So I will bring my like everyday tools where you can see that like, hey, they are worn down and they've been used. And so that brings a lot of interest over in general for like high schoolers. I've gone to a middle school or two and I do the same thing. I'll bring the same tools. I'll just, if I have my bandsaw, I'll pop the blade out of it. Or if I have my hacksaw, it just depends on the situation. But like I'll let them play with the tools. And I'm like, hey, like I use these on an everyday basis. And I'll explain what I do. And we do this little game that Chuck Gillespie, our executive director, he kind of brought it up. We put a pro press with 2 pieces of pipe and we're like, hey, if you can get this part, we'll give you $20.
Ooh.
And the kids absolutely love it.
That's
and
incentive.
It gets them interested. And sometimes I'll bring just PECs and I'll let them build their own things with some PECs and I'll let them take them home with it. So I think a lot about it is just letting the kids get their hands on something where they're not just sitting there watching you do something. They're physically getting to get their hands on it and being like, oh, I mean, I did that in 2 minutes at this school career fair. I could do that for my future. And I think that's the biggest thing is just letting them get their hands a little dirty or get their hands on something, that they have the ability to do it too.
Yeah. And I think showing them and showing up where they are on top of obviously going to schools, but also showing up where they are. Where are they? They're on social media. They're on TikTok, right? They're on Instagram, right? To engage with them on there as well.
Yes.
To showcase exactly, what people are doing with their hands. And that's why I love different influencers who are doing stuff in their own way. And it really piques the interest of the younger generation. I think there's a lot more work that we can do. There's a huge shortage. They say we need 550,000 plumbers by 2027. I mean, it doesn't feel like that when you go down to like a Skills USA and you see like hundreds and hundreds of kids, in the plumbing field, and like it just doesn't feel it. But overall, that shortage is just felt with different companies out there.
It definitely is. I know that pretty much all of the trades, every industry is just starving for help right now and trying to get the good help and just keep it, and is probably about the hardest thing that's happening right now.
I think we're turning a corner here. Trade school is up. Right? AI, what's going on in the white collar world, people are looking at the trades. They're not getting the same return on investment on college, and working with your hands, you could start making money right away and be successful. Valerie, before you leave the show, what would you say to the younger generation if you're thinking about the trades, but you're not sure which trade to go into? What would you suggest to that person?
I would suggest, like I mentioned earlier, like going somewhere and just, if you go to high school and you have a career fair, asking them like, hey, do you guys do like summer internships? Do you know somewhere that I could do an internship at, or I could just spend the summer just seeing if you want to do it? life is too short to do something that you don't love. You don't want to get set in like a trade that you don't love, you don't enjoy. So it's not a bad thing to hop around and try and figure out what you want and what makes sense to you. I mean, like I said, it's just, you have to ask, be like, hey, do you do this? Can you explain this to me? And it doesn't hurt to ask. And it's the best way to do it. You can hop around, you can do whatever you want, but at the end of the day, you have to find something that makes sense to you where you get excited every day to go to work.
Yeah, you got to find your passion.
Exactly.
What lights you up? Look, if welding and sparks light you up, if electrical stuff lights you up, or even plumbing, just be somebody who's a sponge, get somebody who's a mentor that can help you through this, and just be open-minded to keep learning and keep growing.
It's not going to be easy. The industry is not made to be easy, but at the end of the day, the industry provides.
Yes. Yes. It will weed out those people. But at the end of the day, if you have a passion for working with your hands, it's a great path. It is. Valerie, if people want to find out more about you, social, website, where do they go?
Typically my LinkedIn, or if they just call Pipe, but typically my LinkedIn is where I have had a lot of high schoolers reach out to me, and I'm just going to pop this out there. I've helped 5 women get into the industry this year alone, just through my LinkedIn. I help that out, and I also help a lot of other companies just get involved with their PhDC as well that way.
Awesome. Valerie, keep inspiring, keep making impact. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.